Hey there, Internet friends. Trevor Starkey here, welcoming you to episode 7 of That Nerdy Site Show, a weekly podcast where the team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all of the nerdy things we love about them. Joining me this week, we have Cameron Abbott.
What's going on, nerds?
What's going on, Cameron? And joining us for the first time since the Austin episode, Christian Puente, aka Pixel Brave. How you doing, Christian?
Hello again.
Good to have you. I hope you've been well.
Yeah.
A bit of housekeeping up front. If you enjoy what you hear, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast everywhere you can. We are live on iTunes, Spotify. We upload to YouTube, even though it's not a video show at the moment. And if you're feeling extra generous, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thatnerdysite, like Henry Barbie did. He is one of our new patrons this week. If you do, you get a shout out like that. So welcome to the patron community for That Nerdy Site, Henry. Thank you for joining us. So let us go ahead and dive right in. Cameron, what is new and nerdy with you?
Oh, that's an excellent question, Trevor. First things first. I don't know if that carried over, but I just
No, it didn't. I'm so glad.
I just cracked open a cold one. It's a water bottle this time, though.
Such a dumb little bit from that ultimate video game list show.
It is. It's this incredibly dumb bit, but it's my bit, and as we all know, I commit to the bit. So.
Wait a minute.
You definitely do something.
Did you not actually crack open a water bottle?
I mean, I did. No, that's the joke. Is like, and every
Usually he cracks open like a soda or something.
Okay. I thought it was like code or something. I was like, oh no, wait, what?
No. It's okay.
Yeah, normally you hear like the can popping sound of like a cold one opening, basically. But apparently you did not have a can this week, just a bottle of water.
No, because
or something.
So, like, what's going on with me is that I'm moving.
Right.
I'm moving back to civilization.
Right.
I've been living outside of the Phoenix metro area in an unincorporated part of Pima County. I'm not even in Maricopa County where Trevor lives anymore.
Oof. Yeah.
I will be starting tomorrow, and oh man, I've probably spoken about my commuting woes before, but it's about an hour 40 there and 2.5 hours back.
Jeez.
Well, 2 to 2.5, somewhere in that range. It's been a nightmare. I've wanted to just like pull over off to the side of the road and just quit everything and just normally I'd be like, and just drive and never come back, but I really don't want to drive.
Yeah. And you had an instance a few weeks back where like your car wouldn't start, right, when you were trying to come home?
Yeah.
Oh jeez.
The starter or alternator or something had died on you?
The battery died, and it was like, but I was like worried it might be the alternator or something. So that's actually, I believe that's one of the reasons why I wasn't on an episode before. Because I was supposed to be on it, but I was stuck out.
Oh yeah, that sounds right. Probably one of our two-person episodes. Should have been including Cameron, but Cameron got stuck out in wherever he works.
I mean, I was in Phoenix. I was stuck in Phoenix.
Oh, yeah.
But
just 2 hours away from your recording equipment.
Pretty much. So, nightmares being what they are, let's go ahead and talk about something that was a big kind of surprise for me was I started Disco Elysium last night.
Nice.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, that one big at the Game Awards, I picked it up. I have not started it yet, but it winning the most of the awards this weekend with 4 awards, I want to say. I was like, all right, like I've heard nothing but good things about that game, and I have a nice PC that is like basically that I'm using now that I'm editing the shows every week and all that stuff. So I was like, I'll pick up Disco Elysium and try that out. But I've not yet started up a game. But how's that going for you?
I played probably about 45 minutes of it. I understand completely why it's one game of the year.
Yeah. Wow.
The indie game of the year.
Well, the indie game of the year, yeah. This game is there. I really want to dig more into it. I'm very upset that I had to go to bed so I could wake up to go to my job this morning. But my thoughts were filled with it as I was going to bed last night. It's a game where you wake up in a hotel in this weird, wonky kind of version of it's just. It's I don't know if it's in it feels like it's a weird mix of New England, but also coastal London almost feels that way. Very Very cool. Very noir. Like, this is a very noir game. But not in the sense of it being like a... Like pulp noir. Does not feel like a... The kind of noir I would compare it to is more of the... what's that book that Johnny Depp did the film adaptation of?
No idea.
It's the one in the desert where they're in Vegas.
Fear and Loathing in
Las Vegas. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. It has like feelings.
I didn't know that was a noir film. I'd always heard about it, but I just thought it was some kind of crime drama. But
no, I guess that is Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is Johnny Depp plays a journalist or a like book author who is like going on like a weekend bender with his lawyer friend, and they're just like taking ludicrous amounts of drugs.
And this game kind of gives you a similar vibe?
No. Yes and no. So, like, the vibe of the Fear and Loathing part, like, kind of like the wonkyism of it, it feels like if Adam Scott wrote Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, but as, like, a crime, novella instead. It's really weird, really fun, very, like, existentialism. Like, there's a lot of existentialism in it. There's, like... The way that you create your character is very well balanced, and then you pick up a specialty, but the special thing is you don't want to min-max your character because they warn you if you max your character too much, like you lean way too much into like one ability to try to break the game, things just won't work for you. Like you'll miss out on things. And so it's very cool in the way that it's designed that way.
Okay.
This is all from 45 minutes of you playing.
Yeah, well, one of the best things...
That's exciting to hear. That's cool to hear such a strong reaction, like so early in the game.
I don't want to spoil anything, because it's, like, the introduction to that game is really different. Like, just the first 45 minutes of that game is very different. I spent 45 minutes in that game. I did not go very far into it. It's not a point-and-click adventure, but it is, like, you use your mouse to, like, drag the guy along, and it is very cool. Very,
so it's PC.
Very cool.
You said mouse. So
yeah, it's only on PC right now. It is an indie game.
Before the Game Awards, I've not heard or am familiar with this game, so
I heard so many whisperings about it before the Game Awards. It was like there was a whisper on like I feel like every single outlet where they were talking about potential best game of the year. Somebody was mentioning, oh, don't forget Disco Elysium, and then everybody's like, oh, Disco Elysium. The only place I think that doesn't do that, like, didn't have that reaction was, like, kind of funny, but that's because
none of them are PC.
Yeah, they're all console
far
enough.
Are you into the game to tell me where Disco comes from?
Disco is 100% the style.
Okay.
Disco in that it is like the suit that the guy wears is very much like what did they call the suits? It wasn't a disco suit, but it was like a leisure suit. Like he wears like a leisure suit from like the late 70s. Disco is very much like the kind of not psychedelic of the 60s, but still that kind of like crazy color palette. It takes deep inspiration from kind of like late 70s architecture style. It's very cool. Very, very cool. Really dig it.
Yeah, it's one of those games that, like, I feel like prior to yesterday, I'd been hearing with the same kind of fervor from the people that loved it as, like, we heard from, like, Undertale fans a couple years ago back when that one first came out. Like, people were like, oh, if you've played this, you know why everybody, like, loves it. And as somebody that missed the Undertale boat at the time, then came back to it later and enjoyed it, but not to that level of fervor. Disco Elysium is definitely something that, when it started cleaning up last night like it did, I was like, all right, I'm going to go ahead and pick it up myself, give it a shot, try and squeeze it in there before end of the year, game of the year consideration myself. So yeah, that's basically one of the things I'm planning on trying to sit through in the next couple weeks. Nice. It is going to be coming to consoles sometime next year.
Even better
PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. It's got like a 2020 date out there for them.
There you go. I do want to say, where I ended last night was I made a decision. So you rolled, there's like a dice rolling system in it, like an RNG dice roll system to determine, and so your stats only affect like the odds. So it plays like an old school dice RPG that way. And what's super crazy is like I was like, oh, I don't have like really good, like I have some pretty okay odds on this one. I guess I'll roll it. Like it can't be that bad. And I rolled it. And it was bad, but in like the best possible way. Like the most incredibly awesome, horrible way. And it was just so cool. It probably will have nothing to do with the impact of the story, but it shifted the tone from me being like, well, this seems pretty cool to, oh, this is going to be the kind of game that it is. And I'm 100% in this.
Was it like the complete opposite of a Critical Role, where like on a 20-sided die you rolled a 1, and it was like, all right, well, you just tripped over yourself and somehow shot yourself in the foot?
No, so you still try to do the thing that you were trying to do. You just fail at it really badly. Like you just,
okay.
It's good. It's really good. People will know it's when you're trying to like run out of the hotel lobby. If that makes any sense to anybody out there, like that's where you know that I am. For some of you who made that save, you probably would be like, oh, it was just like a fun thing or a funny thing. For those of you who failed it like I did, you know that it is downright incredible. Like it is
nice.
Incredible. Like this game I feel like is going to have those moments where you're going to want to go back and replay through it with a different set of stats so you can do different things. And to me that says, like, also I've heard it's like also pretty lengthy. Like it's a good chunk of length. And so I'm pretty excited about that. So that's what I've been playing. I started last night when I should have been writing and finishing my Death Stranding review.
Yeah, I was looking at that when I was putting out the Google Stadia review. I was like, oh yeah, I gave Cameron notes on Frozen and Death Stranding like earlier in the week, and I haven't seen those back again recently. So hope he's doing well on those.
Oh, did you send back more notes on Frozen? Because I thought
no, just
okay.
after that first batch. Because you have not resubmitted anything.
Frozen the movie?
Frozen 2. Yeah,
Frozen 2.
Okay, I didn't know if there was a licensed game that you were trying out or something.
Oh, I wish. Frozen 2, the video game? That would have been sick. Or really terrible.
I mean, like, the license tie-in for the first one was a Match 3 game, so...
You know, you say that, but Trevor, you know I'm a big fan of those Match 3 games.
That's fair. I don't remember who it was recently, but I was telling somebody, maybe it was, I think it was Joey Noelle when I was in San Francisco. I was telling her that back when I was dating Catherine, her mom came and visited me at some point, or visited us at some point, and like she loves the Match 3 games, so we downloaded Frozen to my PS4 as like a free-to-play thing for her to do while like I was at work or something like that, and she played it enough to like pop a trophy on my system, so I can't like clear out any evidence or all evidence that I ever had that game. So yeah, just somewhere buried in my trophy library is a trophy from the Frozen Match 3 game on my PS4, and it's a game that Match 3 does not work well on console. Because you have to like move the cursor over to where you want to like change the things around, as opposed to just being able to like move them with your finger on a touch device or something. So like that's got to be a really hard platinum, really, realistically.
Trevor, you know what we have to do now?
No, we do not.
We have to tag team to take down the Frozen trophy, platinum trophy. We're gonna plat it.
No, we're not. I mean, if you want to knock yourself out for it, go ahead.
It's a new show idea. Plat that, where we take on hard platinums that aren't impossible or take a lot of time, but do require like a degree of skill that will not translate to anything else in the world. Yeah.
No, I'm gonna pass on that show.
That's
if you
fair.
Want to do it, knock yourself out. But
that's fair.
I've got plenty other things that I'd rather actually play.
My new home has 350 down, 30 up. I'm very excited.
I think Trevor's just trying to let it go. You know what I mean?
Well done, Christian. Christian, that I think works as a nice segue to you, because you saw Frozen. We talked about it a couple weeks ago on the show, so I think Cameron and I have talked about it. But what were your thoughts on Frozen?
I liked it overall. Like, it was fun. I'd check it out again. I'll get the Blu-ray. I'll check out the sequel if there's a third one. But
the first one. You just watched the first one.
No, sorry. No, I'm talking Frozen.
No,
2.
Frozen 2.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh, you're really like you're far behind on that one. Okay, cool.
No, I rewatched the first one the night before checking out the second one, and yeah, it still holds up. I love it and everything. And two, I really liked, but I do have some weird nitpicks with it. Mostly that I think it projects the plot. I think it projects the ending like way too much.
Yeah,
Like
like it foreshadows everything.
yeah, like hey, would be a shame if something happened to this dam, and I was like, oh, the dam's probably gonna something. By the way, spoilers for the next 1 to 2 minutes because I'm not gonna talk about it a lot. So like for Frozen 2, if you're listening to this and have not seen it, you know, maybe the next 1 minute because I really don't want to spend too much time on it. But yeah, like and like oh, like you only wear a mother's scarf when you're upset. I'm like, oh, this scarf's gonna come into play. Like just like I don't know if that talks about maybe I've just seen too many movies and so I can kind of like see the Matrix or something like that. But
yes, 100%.
I
can see the Matrix.
I was like, I just kind of felt like a lot of the stuff was projected. Like pretty much the first time I heard the song, like not the song, but like the voice coming from a distance, I'm like, that's gonna end up not being like actually someone we meet probably. Like yeah, we do kind of, but like I knew that it was going to be kind of a twist, and like just a lot of it felt really projected. But then that's when I realized, you know what? When they talk about Pixar movies being like something that kids can enjoy and adults, like I usually counted myself as like, yeah, most of this stuff is like the kid side of me enjoying it, and if adults can enjoy it, that's fine. And I was like, maybe I'm starting to reach the point where, you know, I'm not so invested in like the kind of kids version of the storytelling, and I am just there for like the stuff that does appeal to adults, like if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. When Cameron and I talked about it a couple weeks ago, we talked pretty much touching on that same thing of like because we have seen enough Disney movies or just movies in general, we can anticipate the story structure for that movie pretty early on. But like if you put yourself in the mindset of like a kid.
Yeah.
Who doesn't know, you know, how a Disney movie is going to play out necessarily? Like that's going to be a very different experience that they're undertaking, and they're gonna, you know, I think it tackles things that they're not even necessarily going to be like ready to address, and so by the fact that like it ends happily and ever after and all that stuff that we as you know people that grew up with this stuff expect. Like, I'm sure that ends up coming across as a significant catharsis for the kids who have, you know, otherwise potentially watched a couple of characters maybe die off or something like that. So it's definitely one of those, like, it's interesting knowing what we know because we've seen these kinds of movies for 20 years.
I'll say one more thing. Like when he's like, "Yeah, I never knew who saved me that day." I was like, "You got to be kidding me!"
Yeah.
Like,
he got knocked in the head. Like he fell back and got knocked out by a rock. The boy had a concussion. Christian.
But I was like,
it's a concussion.
But I was like, come on! By the end of the movie, we're gonna know, and I know who it is.
There were definitely a few like, oh, that's a really convenient. Like the fact that they don't recognize their mother, like when they first see the the ice sculpture of the two of them together, but then they go back and recognize it because of the scarf. It's like, okay, well, I feel like you would have recognized it the first time when you looked and very specifically called out like, who is this woman?
Oh,
like, you examined her thoroughly, but it's not until like the scarf reveal that like they realize they could put two and two together. I'm like, all right, I don't really buy that one.
And I guess the episode I'd love to talk about more about this
once
some
again.
Other time.
Concussions.
I'll say the one more thing that I was a little let down by was Kristoff's arc. Like it seemed like a straight to video kind of arc. The whole like, oh, I just can't propose. For me, I would have wanted something more like, oh, maybe, you know, Elsa has powers, and so she doesn't look at Kristoff as someone who can protect on the same level as she can. Or I thought maybe Kristoff is trying to like make his way in the kingdom, and like nobody believes, like just something a bit more than just, oh, I'm trying to propose and it's not going well. That was like,
I can appreciate that.
Kristoff is like a real person though in these films. Like, did you like in the first film? He's the only one who's like, yeah, this is crazy. Like, this is not okay. Like, things are wrong here. And then in this film, he's like, oh, I have real people problems. I don't have the mystical saving the kingdom problems. I got real people problems. Okay, like I can't figure out how to propose to my girlfriend. Like, it's troublesome. And on top of that, he is also, like, the most, like, supportive, like, love interest that a princess has ever had. So, I don't know. Sorry, I'm coming off real defensive of this film, and I apologize.
I get that, but I just was expecting something a little bit different.
Hey, he had a real deep moment of personal growth where he realized, hey, I just got to be there to support the person that I love. And sometimes that's what we are in life. We're the bit players. We're the side characters. And we guys got to do our best.
Yeah, there was definitely a moment when I was watching it where I remember thinking, like, because the last time you see him for a chunk of the movie is his big power ballad number, and then he's gone until, like, he comes back at the end of the film. And I definitely remember thinking at some point, man, I miss Kristoff. I hope he comes back into the story soon, because we've spent, like, so much time with Anna and Elsa and their journey. But then ultimately, like, that's the story they're really trying to tell in the film. So I can't necessarily fault them for it. But yeah, it was like the pacing and just, oh, yep, this character that's set up in the beginning as, one of your core kind of 4 characters is just gone for a good chunk of the movie.
He's lost in the woods. It says it in the song. He's lost in the woods.
Yeah. Until
concussions, people.
Until for plot reasons he's not. But yeah, cool. I'll go ahead and throw a spoiler warning tag in the for this little chunk of time around Frozen 2. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, Christian, because I knew that you had some, and since we weren't able to throw together or get together a spoiler cast conversation for it. Figured it'd be fun to chat with you on that. What else is new and nerdy in your life?
Oh, I didn't finish, but anyway.
Oh, well, yeah, no, I'm bouncing around.
Fair.
So we'll circle back to you on a non-Disco Elysium thing.
Sounds good. It's been a while since I've been on the show. My apologies.
Yeah, no worries.
No, just to bounce from one movie to the next. I did catch The Irishman. Is that how it was called? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 3-hour epic.
Yeah.
Which I'm not actually that into. I mean, I enjoy a good not mafia, but like a good crime
film.
Yeah.
Film. I was gonna say thriller, but I always wanted to throw thriller out, and I was like, wait a minute, that's actually not appropriate, whereas it doesn't fit. But anyways, like I do like that kind of Scorsese, kind of film.
Crime drama, I think.
Yeah, crime drama. Yeah. I don't watch too many of them, but the few that I do watch, I enjoy pretty. I enjoy, and yeah, Irishman was good. I caught that with Elmer from the Gone Gold crew. Go check them out. There were some funny guys there.
What Elmer? I love that boy.
Elmer and Robert, they both live here in Austin, so I got to catch up with them, and we watched the movie together.
Love Elmer.
Yeah. And so that was pretty cool, and yeah, it's just kind of been a movie blackout until Star Wars. I'm catching that on the 19th, and yeah, hopefully we can all talk about that, sometime.
I'm seeing it on the 20th.
Sweet. Yeah, we all gotta coordinate sometime, but
yeah, I'll try and figure out a way to get us on for like a reaction conversation about that one. On The Irishman, did you see it? Did you just watch it like on somebody's TV via Netflix, or did you go and see it in a theater?
Oh no, yeah, I went over to their place. They live together, and we just watched Netflix in the living room. Robert and I doubt Elmer listens, so I'm sure he won't mind me throwing him on the bus. But like Elmer couldn't make it through the whole way; he ended up falling asleep. But Robert and I did watch this full thing. We did have to take a little break, a little 5-minute, stretch your legs kind of thing, because that thing is like 3 hours long, I think.
Yeah, it's one I keep seeing in my when I'm figuring out I'm gonna throw something on streaming wise. I keep seeing it out there. I'm like, I don't really want to sit through 3.5 hours.
Apparently, there's a list out there. Like, hey, if y'all want to watch this the way a show would be watched, like here's a list where once you get to this moment, consider that episode 1, and then when you get to that moment, that's episode 2. Like you can kind of sparse them out that way. It's which I think is pretty creative. I think.
Yeah. It's one of those. I also just. I like Scorsese now and then, but not enough to set aside right now 3.5 hours when there are just so many other things I'd rather be watching or doing or kind of consuming. So
for sure, it was on my radar, but I only really went to go see it because they invited me. I'm not sure I would have made the time to see it on my own. Because usually anime is what pulls me away. Which I can talk about anime a little bit later, but I just want to talk about a little anecdote that obviously we're all making our top 10 games of the year, of this year, of the decade, this and that, and man, it is so embarrassing when I try to making these lists and I'm like, I guess I could fit 10 on here, but I technically only beat 2, and like man, it really gave me perspective on how I will stay up to date with games industry news and everything. And if you ask me what I think about anything, I can give at least some perspective. But I haven't actually played those games, like, because I just usually get pulled away by anime.
Yeah, I mean, like, gaming in particular is such a time commitment. And it's
Hmm.
not like I was going through all the like starting to compile my list for game of the year, movie of the year, like TV shows that I watched and all that stuff. And I probably like saw a comparable amount of movies to number of video games I played, but then looking at those video games, I'm like, I put in probably like 10 times as much time in those games as I did in those movies because
Hmm.
a movie experience is, hey, you watch it 2 hours and you're done. And I'm the weird kind of person that a lot of the movies on my list I went and saw like twice, or
Mm.
something like that because I had passes or whatever, or I just wanted to get out and do something.
Right.
So even there, it's still like, yeah, none of that compares to the 70 hours that I put into Death Stranding or whatever. So it's definitely a much more involving commitment to try and come up with like a top 10 games kind of thing. So if you don't have a top 10, whatever, like do a top whatever you have. We'll uh,
Yeah.
we'll figure out
That's
how we're gonna
I'm
handle all that
definitely
stuff on the site here in the
yeah.
next couple weeks, I'm sure. So what were your kind of thoughts on The Irishman? Because that and Marriage Story are like a couple of movies
Ooh,
that are
Marriage
on my
Story is
list
probably
of.
tomorrow. That's
Mm,
when I'll probably. I keep dodging it because I know it's gonna be good, but I also know it's gonna hit me. Like I'm so easily. I was gonna make this tweet earlier, but I ended up getting distracted. But like to kind of uh, illustrate my point is that so at work I can kind of get away with like listening to headphones,
mm-hmm.
but man, and this is not hype. This is kind of hyperbole, but this is like also pretty just accurate. Like it's also kind of like just true. Is that like it's all I can do at work is listen to podcasts because as soon as I start playing like any music from from like anime. I have a playlist of like anime interests and stuff. Like I just get way too emotional. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just too emotional of an audience member that like I can't. I just have to listen to podcasts. And so, um, that to say that the Marriage Story is like that's gonna get me. Like I'm so easily like moved and just what I've been hearing is like the performances are really good, and so I'm bracing myself. I gotta prepare. I gotta set aside time for that, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm just also a little bit nervous.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely kind of the same gist I've heard on it. And so like those two are both movies that I see out there in my queue of like I want to watch those so that I can have a more informed conversation around movie of the year kind of stuff. But yeah, both of them I'm like those are commitments. One is a time commitment and one is like an emotional commitment.
But yeah, before I forget though, yeah, Irishman was good. Al Pacino was the standout role for me personally because I think
Hmm.
he was just the biggest and loudest character, but that's him, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it was entertaining seeing Pesci and Robert De Niro like aged up and down and do their thing again. Get on this. I'm so tongue tied easily. That's something I got to work on before next year. But it was cool just seeing them work together again, even though sometimes I got taken in and out because of the CG.
Yeah.
Like I think the face would have been not as noticeable if they hadn't changed his eyes. I don't know if it's just the fact that he's an Irishman that they're like, you know what, we got to give Robert De Niro like blue eyes, but they are so crystal clear that they're really distracting. I think no one would have. I think they would have gotten
Yeah.
so much more praise for the de aging if they had just left alone the eyes.
Yeah, I've heard that as a critique, and I've heard that like they can de-age him like visually, but physically you can still
Yeah, they
very much
were.
tell that this is an old man playing a young man role kind of thing.
That's true, but despite, and I admit that, but it as soon as I see it, I notice it. Like it doesn't take long for me to just get back into the story. It to me, I like I said, I really enjoyed it overall. So those are just little minor nitpicks, just kind of like like whatever.
Very
But
cool.
overall, yeah, good. And I didn't realize that it was kind of like based on not real events, but like somewhat inspired by kind of
Hmm.
real events.
Yeah.
I got to do more research, but I hear that it takes heavy inspiration from actual events. So
Oh, it
Yeah, that's my
does.
understanding. Is like the ending in particular is like directly kind of pulled from somebody's story, or at least like the story they've told. Whether
yeah,
that person is a reliable narrator, I think, is the more questionable thing.
yeah, which is all the asterisks I'm like throwing up. Is like I heard that it's somewhat. I don't know how accurate it is, but if it is, like I think that's super
So,
interesting.
what I know is that the story that it tells is, for the most part, true. How like close he was to Hoffa, how close he was to like a lot of these people is a little questionable, but it is known that like he did do these things for the Italian mob. It's like that's the reason why the Italian mob called him the Irishman, is because he was one of the only non-Italian people allowed to really associate with like the inner circle.
Hmm.
But like everything that like as far as like his involvement with it and like the true story behind a lot of that is in regards to what's true. What happened to Jimmy Hoffa, however, still is that part is still kind of taken with a grain of salt. I don't know how the movie ends it with and like talks about like the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa, but like Jim, for those of you who don't know, Jimmy Hoffa was a very important figure in, I think it was the, I can't remember the year, but he was part like his getting busted was part of the mob's involvement with service like public service unions being revealed, and was like a big part of the bust that ended up breaking up the Italian mob like national circuit of the families.
Hmm.
So it is like it's a really cool story as far as like the whole era of like kind of the fall of the like the mob as we knew it. And Jimmy Hoffa played a part in it, but Jimmy Hoffa, after like kind of coming clean about his involvement in everything, suddenly disappeared, and to this day nobody knows for sure what happened to him.
Mm.
Mobsters claim that they didn't have it, like they didn't do anything to him. He's still alive and he's out there somewhere. Police think
Yeah.
the mob killed him. People are kind of split either way because Jimmy Hoffa was not like the most straight up dude. So,
Mm.
and isn't he played by Al Pacino in this?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh, Al Pacino's a great Jimmy Hoffa, I have no doubt.
I was gonna say, in general, I haven't seen this take around online much. So, and someone might have made the take already, but since I haven't seen anyone say it, I'm like, maybe I'm wrong. So that's why I don't want to put myself out there. But hey, on this podcast, I'll put myself out there. The film feels like a satire. It feels like it's saying, hey, like we really romanticize gangsters a lot in film, and we're gonna romanticize them here too. But we're also gonna show you like God's Bleed too kind of thing.
Oh,
And
have you seen? Sorry, have you seen like Goodfellas or anything like that?
I've seen Goodfellas, the Godfather films, Casino. That's my limited though. That's about
Yeah,
it as far as but
Casino and Goodfellas is basically what you need to know about the mob cinema scene. Like, there's better stuff I think in there. Once Upon a Time in America, etc.
mm,
But I think that like as far as like that goes, like Goodfellas is very much like a almost borderline satirical take on the mob. I mean, there's that entire scene with their wives where they all have the giant hair and they're sitting around a table smoking. Like there's a lot of that. Casino is like, oh, we're gonna kind of play it up, but then we're actually gonna get real serious because it turns out this was a real person and his life did go to shambles at the end. So,
mm,
I don't know. I mean, like I've seen none of the movies in question, but my understanding is like those elements of those movies are more or less like trying to be true to the spirit and the time and whatnot of those people and kind of the culture. So, I've never heard the idea that like Goodfellas or Casino or something was trying to be satirical. So I'm interested
I
by
guess
kind of your.
Casino's really not satirical
if I
when I
had
think
to
about
make,
it.
and this is probably not an analogy or comparison that you might expect, but if I had to compare this to another film, I'd say Blue Valentine. Like you go
Really?
in you thinking you're gonna get this really kind of, whether things go bad or good, you still think it's gonna be very romanticized even up to the ending. And I think you can have endings where people lose or this or that or don't get things their way, but they're also still kind of like you're still kind of like but hey, like they went out like the way they wanted to go out, and like, but Blue Valentine ends like on such a sad note, and that's kind of how I felt like at the end of this one. Like we had our highs and lows, but there's also something weirdly sad about, what they're trying to say, what I think Scorsese is trying to say about, hey, I make these guys look like top of the world too, but let me show you also what it looks like when, it's the complete opposite. And so I can't wait for you to check it out, Trevor. I hope you can check it out. And yeah,
I'm gonna have to.
maybe
I'm gonna have to check it out myself.
Maybe I'm off base.
Very cool. Yeah, I'll definitely chat it up with you when I sit down with it.
Blue Valentine. That's such an awesome comparison to make it to. Okay, I really want to see The Irishman now.
So I'll dive in with one of the things that I've been doing a lot of recently, and in fact, right before we started recording, I got my review of Google Stadia up and on the website, because I've been sitting down with that over the last few weeks, on and off here and there kind of thing. I joined, I got the Stadia Founders Pack kind of at launch. It actually got sent to me while I was in San Francisco.
No.
So I couldn't like play with the controller and stuff until I got back home. And it was like I remember I want to say like a day or two after I did Kind of Funny Games Daily is when like I got the notification that it had been delivered to my doorstep, and I was like, well, I'm not going to be home for another 4 or 5 days, so Mom, can you swing by and pick up the package that's that's in front of my apartment? And she was kind enough to do so. But I dove in a little bit while I was in San Francisco, played around with kind of just running around Destiny a little bit on my laptop in there using the like the hotel's kind of crappy Wi-Fi, and it worked. And it has continued to work, in my apartment on better Wi-Fi, and with the controllers and stuff, and being able to like switch between like my PC to my TV via the Chromecast that came with the system, to my laptop, like all that works great.
Wow.
I've had no issues. I have not, and I talk about this in the review, like I'm not the guy that can tell you how like technically how visually it is, if it's 1080 versus 4K. I can't tell you that. I can't tell you, good things about like input lag and stuff, but to the layman eye, it all works. It's all fine. I did.
Which that's my circle. I'm in the layman eye. I'm just like I don't know what a teraflop is or a gigabyte or whatever, So
yeah, the bigger issues tend to be like that. All of the things that they said, like, hey, it's going to do this, it's going to do this, it's going to do this. Like, so many of those things just aren't ready yet. Like, and have been pushed to 2020 is what they're saying. Like, 4K streaming on the browser, or the kind of integration for like streamers to be able to like save the state of your game and then share it out to your followers or whatever, so they can kind of hop in and pick it up right where you left off. Like that's not a thing that's going to be ready anytime soon. And then also like playing with other people and stuff just isn't out there and ready to go yet. So like right now the technological thing that it can hang its hat on is that you can kind of bounce around from device to device to device, and it works. You pick up and kind of continue your game. I don't know how much data it's been taking up in my my plan. Like I looked at my my account last night as I was kind of writing the review and everything, and the like it didn't look drastically different between months, between like here's the month I had Stadia and here's the month I didn't. Okay. And like I don't know if I was just streaming a ton of Disney stuff last month that kind of offset it as well or what, but it like I've not run close to my I think 1,000 gigabyte cap. But I also probably only put, 10 hours into Stadia across like all the different play sessions and games that I was playing with them. So, like, definitely do. I say in the review, like, if you want the more technical, if you want to know how much kind of data it's sucking up, like, there are better reviews out there that are going to capture that information better. But for what I did, it worked fine. I played through 5 different games. With Stadia Pro, they give you basically like PlayStation Plus type games where you get Destiny 2, Samurai Showdown, Farming Simulator 19 and the original 2013 Tomb Raider reboot.
Some at least recognizable titles. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, like of those, Destiny 2 is the only one I would want to play like today,
Mm.
because all the others I'm like, well, like Tomb Raider I played when it came out, and I've played the sequels elsewhere in the years past, so I'm not really interested in diving into a 6-year-old game on Stadia. And then Samurai Showdown just is a fighting game that's not really for me.
Mm.
And then Farming Simulator is just like Stardew Valley, but without like the fun charm, so also not really for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, Destiny 2, if I hadn't already been like burnt out on Destiny 2, is the game I would put most time into. And I say in the review, like that's actually, given that you get like all of Destiny 2, like the complete collection with a
Mm-hmm.
Stadia Pro kind of account, that's actually a pretty good deal. You don't have to buy all the other stuff. So like if you're gonna play Destiny 2, that's where I would recommend playing it. Probably because you can take it on the go and kind of like, oh, if you need to get get stuff from Xur or whatever, if that's even still a thing. I don't know. I've not kept up with Destiny 2 at all. I'm sure Cameron could speak to it, but
Yeah, you can still get stuff from Sir.
yeah, okay. So like, I remember back with Destiny 1, I remember like logging into remote play on my Vita when I would go to like a Kind of Funny live event or something like that, just to log in and get whatever I needed to get from Xur that weekend. So you can basically do that same kind of thing with this if you're out on the go and or you have your laptop with you or something. You can do that. So that's a cool thing. And then the fifth game that I played is the only new game that has been added since launch, and that's Darksiders Genesis, which is
that's right. I forgot.
it's like a top-down hack and slash kind of game. I remember like originally hearing it was a Diablo-like. After putting a couple hours into it, I don't see it as Diablo-like. I see it as more like just a hack and slash kind of thing. And after 2 hours of that game, I still don't know, outside of just hacking and slashing the enemies, what I'm supposed to be doing, what I am doing, what the things I'm picking up do for me or mean,
Really?
or like what the currencies are, or what like it's like the game doesn't tutorialize at all, but in a
I
weird
guess it
like,
figures if you're playing three, maybe it assumes like you played 1 and 2, and
well,
so
no, because this is Darksider Genesis, so this is a spin-off from the Darksiders series that takes
okay.
place like thousands of years, I think, before the Darksiders games. So it's a
Okay.
completely different genre from what they're doing in the Darksiders games, and it is more like it's isometric hack and slash in the style of like a Diablo, but
Mhm.
it's not. At least from what I played in the first couple hours, it's not like, oh, you're trying to get like loot and better gear for your characters. You're leveling up your characters, but it's basically like, oh, you've now got a new attack. You don't have gear that's necessarily going to like make that attack stronger or weaker or whatever. So it's just a weird game that doesn't really isn't really going to pull me back. And that's like the big thing outside of Google Stadia. Just has a whole bunch of stuff that they kind of promised at out the gate that just isn't there and isn't ready yet.
Mhm.
And then the bigger thing for me is there just aren't games that I want to play on it. Or
I hear
the games that I'm interested in playing. Like I said when I was on Kind of Funny Games Daily, I was like, oh, I missed Rage 2 and I missed like Wolfenstein Youngblood, so maybe I'll pick those up and play them on Stadia. And somebody in the comments on that video basically were like, Rage 2's in like Xbox Game Pass now, so like don't spend $60 to buy it on Stadia if you can just get it on Game Pass. And I was like, that's a better call. I'm just going to do that if I really want to play Rage 2. So yeah, there's just nothing on Stadia that I can't play elsewhere, or
Come
that I
on,
haven't
Google.
already played elsewhere, or that I want to play, because it's got a lot of the like 2019 or 2020 like sports games and stuff, but I'm just like,
Mhm.
I don't care about any of those. So the enticing notion of being able to like take that on the go and play it, at my home or at a work computer or something, like on a break or whatever, like none of that just like is too appealing to me. So I think I ended up giving it a 6, as like it's a decent offering.
Mhm.
The
Wow.
core technical promise of it works. It's just like it's very bare bones, and I would have much rather seen it kind of hold off until they've either got a larger library that they're going to launch with, or until it has more of the features that they were really trying to like sell you on. But at this point, I kind of echo what a lot of other people have already said about like I don't know who this is for necessarily, and it feels very much like it's in early access, but they shipped it as like here's the finished product, and yeah, they're gonna continue to tweak it and add more to it over time, but like it launched and left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. So
That's a shame.
that's gonna take some time to like yeah, just right now I don't know what the value is of getting it. And I said on kind of funny, and I kind of echo it still. Like if I hadn't been trying to create content for the site, for that nerdy site, and kind of and a review of it, like this is something I wouldn't have bothered really playing with at all. I would have just been like, I've got my consoles.
Yeah.
I can just like stick with that for now.
Mhm.
So yeah, those are my Google Stadia thoughts. You can check out the full kind of review write up on thatnerdysite.com if you are interested. You guys have any questions I can run down or answer?
Nothing specific, but I was curious, like, since you do have the Stadia, like, how did it feel seeing like the ad for it during the Game Awards? Because it was, I mean, because I had heard some of the impressions that you're saying, like on other podcasts, like what's good games, and like I couldn't help but have them in the back of my head as I'm seeing them promote and promise all these things, like yes, 4K 60 and this and that.
Yeah, my tweet response to that like commercial or especially the first like longer one that they did, because they were like Google Stadia is this, Google Stadia is this, Google Stadia is this. I basically tweeted out Google Stadia is like none of these things, or is not this at all, or something to that effect. It was basically just no. They're definitely trying to continue to sell it as all the stuff they promised kind of initially, but it's not there yet. But of course, they'd look bad if they try and go out and say, hey, it's not all these things. Here are all the things that are coming. Like that's not going to be nearly as compelling a commercial. So yeah, it was that was probably one of the like more cynical, snarky, starky moments that I had last night was watching that.
Well, I think that was totally justified, though.
Yeah, I mean, I paid $130 for the thing.
Yeah.
I didn't go to the length of putting this like criticism in it, but like all the things that they promised and they sold this thing on not being there at launch is borderline fraud. But since I could have canceled the subscription at any time leading up to it, knowing that like they weren't going to hit those dates and stuff, like I'm sure that's why I couldn't actually like sue them for fraud or have a class action whatever, because they made a very clear point before launch of saying like here's what it's going to do, here's what we're not going to have ready yet. And a lot of people at that time did cancel their pre-orders and stuff and said, all right, no point in me getting this now if it's not going to be ready for another 6 months.
I wonder if that was some kind of internal deadline, like if y'all don't launch this thing by end of 19, it's dead or something like that. I wonder if that was some kind of
that's definitely like, because I can't imagine Google's hurting for the money on this or anything like that. It's not like it launched in early November, so it's not like they were trying to get it out in time for a fiscal year end thing or any like or even a quarter end kind of thing. And like I want to say that was like a comparison I made. Like we see EA, try and get their games out by March 31st because that's when their fiscal year ends. So they need to record the income in that given year. I don't like, based on when they launched it, I can't see that being a thing that Google was really trying to get. I think they were trying to get it out there in advance of like the holiday season and Black Friday and all that stuff. But yeah, I think they would have probably just been better off holding it a few more months until they had more of these kind of initial features ready to go, so they could launch it with a bang and still get it out there, 6 months maybe before the Xbox Series X and the PS5 and stuff, and still try and like basically I feel like they would have been fine if they tried to get the Nintendo Switch like release window kind of thing of early in the year. Then you've got 6 months of people, trying it and building up the buzz on it, and then you still can have a good holiday season with it if that's what you're, because effectively all you have to buy is is the controller, and you don't even really need that. Once they've got kind of the other controllers and all that other stuff supported. And right now, even as one of the other critiques I put on that thing, even the controller. The controller works wirelessly if you're using the Google Chromecast that came with the thing, but it doesn't work wirelessly with a web browser yet. So like if I'm playing on my computer or on my laptop, I have to have it plugged in via USB for it to register. So it's like I don't. That's another thing where I'm like, I don't know why this doesn't work the way it's supposed to work. Why this is something they couldn't get up and going in time for launch. So I'm sure there are technical reasons for all of those things, and financial reasons for the decisions they made to launch it when they did. But I don't understand them, and they just look like. And I think to a lot of the people that have been playing and reviewing stuff, it just looks like they launched it when it should have had another few months at least, kind of in the oven, ready to go.
I think if they had to do it this year, like if there was some ordinance that they're like, it's got to be this year, I would have at least not, like, it's not just toning down expectations, but I would have marketed it different as like, instead of like, hey, like all you hardcore gamers, like, yeah, we got your Destinies and this and that, like that should have just been like icing on the cake. The actual cake itself should have been like, maybe, I think anyways, marketing to like a bit more of a casual crowd, like, hey, like, have you always wanted to try out gaming? Well, this is like one of the cheapest ways, $130, and it gets you all these games, and you already have the equipment you need, your laptop or your PC, and like people, target it there. And then Google, everybody knows Google, so as soon as that comes out, yeah, you can also answer if they're like, well, where's the pro version for us? Like, oh, well, that's coming. We know you like, the 4Ks and 6DS and everything like that. Like maybe that's coming out in 2020, but right now we just want to get on the market, and so we're targeting to a bit more of a casual crowd. Like that went really well for Nintendo, so
yeah. And to clarify, like that is effective. Like the version I've got is the pro version. It is the the bundle came with Stadia Pro, which is their $9.99 a month kind of. If you get that service, you get the better streaming performance, and you can get the higher quality visuals and all that stuff, and you get special deals for Pro is basically like the equivalent of like a PlayStation Plus, where it's like, hey, here's the monthly subscription thing. We're going to give you occasional free games. We're going to give you occasional discounts and stuff. But if you don't want any of that, you maybe need the controller, or you can use one of your other controllers, and then you just go into Google Stadia.com or whatever, set up your account, and you buy Assassin's Creed Odyssey, for example. You buy it at full price there, and you've got it in your Google library now, and you can play it and you didn't have to spend $200 on an Xbox or a PlayStation or whatever. You have the game now. You can play it on a web browser. So like that, it is the cheapest option if you have the data plan that can support it, and you have some kind of controller. So yeah, if you already have one of those other consoles, you've probably got those controllers. If you don't, if you are this casual person that you're kind of creating the hypothetical around, like they either would need to go and get the Stadia controller, or they would need to get a controller to play on, or they could play on mouse and keyboard, really realistically. So like it is maybe for them, but it's just weird how do you target to them and say like, hey, you've been playing video games on your phone, want to try like leveling up to something bigger and bolder? Here's Google Stadia. I don't think that's the message. That's certainly not the messaging I've seen around it.
I think the name doesn't help either, because it's like, oh, so this is like a sports thing, because it sounds like Stadium, like something that.
Wait, what?
It should have just been like Google Game, just that, the Google Game controller, something like that, just something that anyone would know.
Hold up, you thought Stadia? You think Stadia sounds like Stadia? I guess okay. Nope. I said it out loud together.
Okay. Stadia and Stadium are definitely from the same Latin root. So
that is correct. I was like, that doesn't make any sense, and then I start saying it out loud. It's like, oh no, that makes sense. Okay.
And it was pretty much like their whole initial like video, like announcing the launch was leaning into that, and leaning into like, hey, Stadia is about gaming like as a community kind of thing. It is about that sports aspect of gaming in a stadium or whatever. Like
That's
they
true. Okay.
fully leaned into that. So yeah, it was definitely, I think, on the forefront of their minds. But yeah,
I was thinking of the words being like written next to each other, and I was like, no. But then I said it out loud, and it was like, oh yeah.
yeah. But yeah, it's just an interesting experiment that they're playing around with. I'll be very curious to see which side of the like Google fails pile this ends up on. If it ends up as another Google Plus or whatever that they give up on here pretty shortly, or if it is something that they try and like last the test of time. And if it ends up on the fail pile, then my Stadia controller is just going to be like, well, that's a little interesting thing I'm going to have in my inventory for as a collector piece for a while.
I think it's so far. I think it's at least doing better than the Ouya ever did.
Yeah, that's fair. Cool. So I'll throw it back over to you, Cameron. Anything else you want to kind of touch on, new and nerdy wise?
Yeah, I've been playing a lot of Pokemon Sword.
Yeah, how's that going?
Game is good. Pokemon game, as you can expect, is good game.
Oh, you're not sending angry letters to Nintendo.
as the person who on that nerdy or that Ultimate Video Game List show really tried to champion Pokemon Soul Silver longer than it lasted, I'm not surprised you're enjoying the Pokemon game.
It's a good game. Also, yeah, people who haven't seen that episode, this latest one, you could call it like the karmic retribution of Cameron, like towards Cameron Abbott, but you could also look at it as the murder,
the passion of the Abbott.
The passion of the Abbott. I was going to say it was more like the murder of way better games by the coward Logan and Frank. Like Logan, I swear, Logan's still riding that high from him still having his veto. Like it means something now, and I feel like next episode, I gotta kind of take things to the mat. I don't think I took things to the mat early enough, and I paid for it in the end. So I feel like I gotta come back around and take things to the mat next episode.
Yeah, plug for that Ultimate Video Game List show. If you are listening to this show but have not been listening to that one, go check that out. It's a lot of fun. We've gotten to the stage where now we've got our list of 20 games. We are now ranking those 20 games, and the conversation is definitely getting heated as we try and figure out what games are going to make it to the top of this list. So definitely go check that out if you have not already. It's been a lot of fun.
You could also call it like video game history revisionism. The show, like
sure.
No, I'm joking. That's more of me like coming down on some things. From
that's Cameron hates Wind Waker.
Yeah, that's 100%.
And that's about it.
Wind Waker has always looked like trash, and it continues to look like trash, and nothing will ever change my mind.
Mm-hmm. All right. So what else do you? So
Pokemon Sword.
So Pokemon Sword
is good. It's really good. I was totally surprised. So I beat. I'm now the Pokemon champion of the Galar region. I have to say, the way they do Pokemon, like, I totally expected, I have to beat, like, I enter this finals tournament, I beat my rival, and I expected, like, okay, now I face the champion. It's like, no, you qualified for, like, the actual cool tournament this way. And it's like, what? And then you're in this tournament with all the gym leaders again. But instead of using, like, the Pokemon they use for the gym challenge, they actually use, like, their real Pokemon. Because it turns out, every year, the gym challenge is just to bring in, like, a random person to, like, kind of, like, upset the balance of things, and then, like, bring in, like, fresh blood, and then the rest of the gym leaders and you all battle out to see who gets to face the champion. Crazy cool, like, entire, like, setup, and the second time around, the gym leaders have actually, like, really strong, powerful Pokemon, and they use them really wisely. There's no more of their, like, gym gimmicks that they use to try to test trainers. They're there to, like, fight for real, and it's cool because it's like, okay, no, like, the Galar region really is all about competition. It is about this idea of, like, this competitive fighting. They take place in these giant stadiums, and now I'm the champion, and it's great, but now I was surprised by how soon the post-game popped up, and is, like, taking you directly into it. And it's interesting because you get to play as the champion for a while. But like the story revolves around like the story of most Pokemon games is the champion is somehow like the super detective of the region. Like no politician or like local government leaders are in charge of figuring out like what's going on in the world. It's always the Pokemon champion who has to like be investigating these things. And so like you play that, and now I'm in the middle of doing that, and it's actually really, really cool. And it plays into kind of the idea of the Sword and Shield Pokemon and the legend behind them, and it's really, really cool. Big fan of a lot of the stuff that happens towards the like the tournament end. It's very anime. It's very anime, and it's very cool.
How are you feeling about the new mechanic, the whole gigantic Pokemon thing?
Gigantamax.
Yeah, so Gigantamax Pokemon that you're able to get early on in the game are trash. They're trash. I don't care if Meowth is tall. He's trash. However, I had, like, before I went to the tournament, I literally was like, I'm not going to go in until I have a Gigantamax Pokemon. And so I raided a bunch with a bunch of people, and finally I faced off against a Snorlax with a couple of people who were just randos, and we took down the Snorlax, and I captured him. So now I have this, like, fat Snorlax that, like, pops, like, he's so fat that the ground covered him up, and now he has a tree growing on top of him.
I saw that, and I was like, did they just, like, mash up the Snorlax with, like, was it, like, the Tortuga or whatever?
Torterra?
Torterra?
No. So his whole thing...
Like, it looks like that.
I can see that being the case, however, if you look closely, it's actually a berry tree. So it's a Pokeberry tree. So these berries, he has a move called Replenish, which is a really cool move in Gigantamax form. But what it also does is if he had a berry if you had berries that had been used in the battle so far, it restores them and replenishes them. So it's this recycling mechanic for your berries. Like, I can imagine, like, the pros are, like, in the actual Pokemon League pros, they're gonna, like, Gigantamax Snorlax could easily be, like, the part of this, like, berry recycle system that you could have going on to prevent yourself from ever getting, like, status affected.
Cool. Or they'll just make him one of the ones that can't compete.
Oh yeah, if he's too broken, for sure.
Yeah.
But no, so I really love him, and of course, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I picked Grookey to start with, and I really took the idea of the theme of Grookey Gang to heart, and so all my Pokemon have Key at the end of their name. So my Snorlax is called Snorkey.
Okay. What does Grookey evolve into?
Rillaboom, but I renamed him Grookey because that is his name.
This is probably the first time where I've just been so, like, not paying any attention to... I guess I didn't really pay attention in Sun and Moon either. But, like, I know Grookey and Sobble and Scorbunny as the starters. I have no idea what any of them, like, I don't think I've seen any of their evolutions. Or if I have, like, it's been people posting memes or whatever, and I've just not been paying any attention to them. So I'm just like, I have no idea what those guys turned into. And I'm just, I'm kind of enjoying my, like, ignorance is bliss on this.
Well, then it's over now. So Scorbunny turns into, like, a professional soccer player. Stays fire the entire time. I was super surprised. Doesn't go into fighting. Stays fire.
So he doesn't, like, turn into, like, a fire flying or fire fighting type like they often do?
Nope. The three main starters stay as their element. That's it. They don't, like, multi-type. Nice. It's a cool, like, refreshing kind of like, oh, cool. Like, you don't need to do that. You can have your starters just be pure elements. That's cool.
What a weird low bar to set for, like, oh, that's an interesting thing. The fact that they don't change.
The series has been around for, like, 20 years, Trevor.
Yeah.
Anyway, Grookey turns into... So Grookey's whole thing is, like, he has the stick, but when he turns into his second evolution, he gets 2 sticks. And when it's in his hair, it's like a man bun, and when he takes it out, it's a mohawk, and it's cool. But he bangs things with his 2 sticks. But Rillaboom ends up, like, carving out, like, a drum for himself, and so he has these dreadlocks made of vines, and he's, like, this awesome, like, ska band drummer, and he rules. He totally rules. Because he has a move that instead of Vine Whip, he has this ability where he beats his drum and vines, like roots come out of the ground and, like, beat people instead, and it's awesome. Grookey game for life. Sobble turns into somebody who Chris Hansen would approach on To Catch Predator. So,
Okay.
Sobble's final evolution in Teleon, like it's kind of like that one guy who he's like, yeah, I'm like I know about like the deep web, like I'm on the deep web.
Starting to wonder if it's just like a goal of yours to like sneak To Catch a Predator references into like all of the shows.
Listen, it wouldn't be like that's not one of my bits, but now that you said it, I kind of wish I had that thought. I feel like I've really let myself down on this one. Like that would have been a really good bit. Because don't get me wrong, like Chris Hansen's still at it, folks. YouTube, he has a YouTube channel where he does like a show, and dude's still at it protecting children. Like
I was uploading one of the podcasts to the That Nerdy Site YouTube the other day, and I saw like Live with Chris Hansen like was one of the recommended things, and like that account doesn't follow anything, so I'm like, okay, they're definitely just listening to the content we're talking about and putting out like recommendations
Google,
based on
are you listening?
So.
Fix your Stadia.
Yeah. So
no,
yeah, that was a bit of a
interesting.
surreal. Like, okay, well, yeah, this is definitely Cameron has done something to this account now.
No, like Inteleon's basically like I like Sobble was gonna be like such the like niche choice for so many of like our friends, and like very few actually stuck with it because Inteleon's like just a creep.
Okay.
Although he does have one cool move called Water Snipe, where he makes a finger gun and it shoots out like a spurt of water that apparently like can snipe people and kill people. So that's cool. Definitely not something that like. Anyway, I'm not gonna go into that. This is a deep rabbit hole I could go down. Irrational Passions is currently doing like we're gonna rank like the best Pokemon from Sword and Shield scientifically, and
Scientific?
it's not real scientific because
Okay.
they dare to put Grookey at like a 6.8 or something, and I'm furious about it still. I digress. They refused to rate Sobble because they're afraid, because they know people are going to like tear into Sobble because Sobble turns into a gross person.
Okay, so I did just look up Inteleon, and like admittedly, like with your Chris Hansen reference in there, I immediately look at it, I go, okay, I get where Cameron's coming from. Yeah, that definitely looks like a guy that might just hang around in an alley looking for children.
There you go. And if you look up Scorbunny's final evolution, it just looks sporty. Like it's a little sporty like bunny. That's cool.
Yep.
And Rillaboom is like 100% like, listen, this guy is married, he has 3 kids, and he plays for a ska band on the weekends. Like, that's his deal.
That's his Pokedex entry.
Pretty much. That's his deal. That's how it ends. Like, married, 3 kids, plays in a ska band on the weekend. That's his deal. And it's like,
Nice.
That's the weirdest Pokedex entry ever.
Anything else you've been enjoying?
Destiny 2 Season of Dawning's pretty good, except for the fact that Osiris is back. And Osiris is the worst. Because he went from being a possibly really cool, enigmatic cult leader to just being some, like, dumb old time cop.
Okay. Yeah, I got, like, when I logged in and was playing Destiny, I got, like, the video thing for that. But I still had to go through and do, like, all the stuff in Shadowkeep, so I was just like, okay, well, I'm on the moon, and I wrote about it in the Stadia review. I'm like, it like finally got through the first mission on the moon after dying like 20 times because I was like, I don't like remember anything that I'm doing. I'm super like underpowered or whatever, and I don't know how to easily like I don't know if I should be going and doing something and grinding to level up my gear or whatever. I don't know what the max gear level is at this point and all that stuff. But
so that first level is really easy to die because, especially once you get to the vehicle section.
Shriekers.
Yeah, the Shriekers, like it's really easy to die. It's an open event thing, so people can pop in and out. So things are kind of overpowered on purpose because there's really easy ways to cheese your way through it. For you to feel that way is not at all because they auto level you, I think, to 750.
Yeah.
And so your light level's fine. It's just a matter of the things kind of janky because it's supposed to be done with multiple people and you're doing it by yourself.
Ooh. And thus why I don't do Destiny anymore.
Well, the missions from here on out won't be that bad at all.
Yeah,
you'll be fine for it.
But I also don't plan on going back to it at this point. I'm like,
that's fair.
I put it in, I tested it. Like, cool that it's free out there and people can continue enjoying it. And I did appreciate that I could like cross save my characters over and carry them over into the Stadia version, no problem. So like there, I could do it. I just don't have the interest in like there's too
That's
many
fair.
other things I'd rather go out and play at this point than more
Yeah.
Destiny.
I will say, like, you are 100% fair because I know that you put in way more hours into Destiny 2 than you really realistically should have
Yeah.
initially. So
Yeah. I was
yeah,
looking at wasted on Destiny and I'm at like 392 hours on Destiny 2 at this point. So it's just like, yep, that's a lot, and pretty much almost all of that comes pre Forsaken,
yep,
because I put very little time into Forsaken when it came out.
that is correct. So, like, once again, I cannot blame you for not going. Like, other people would be like, oh, it might be worth going back and putting more time into it. For you, no. Like, you've done your time. Like, you served, you did your time, you're good.
Yeah,
Destiny can now be referred to, like, inferred to be, like, either a prison or, like, military service. Either way it works. And then I kind of have just been kind of like looking back at Death Stranding. So I beat that not this past week, but the week before. Been writing the review for it. Been listening to that soundtrack. That soundtrack real good, especially if you listen to it outside of the game. Just kind of like as like great music just to listen to and work with.
yeah, it was a good
Uh,
performance to kick off the Game Awards too.
really enjoyed that performance at the Game Awards.
I
Actually,
really like that too. I still haven't played Death Stranding. I got the disc right here, and I'm
Yeah,
ready to play.
you got the nice yellow controller that Greg
I
sent
got
me.
a
That
nice
was
yellow
very cool.
controller. It's my first alternate controller. Like I've been taking care of my black one like ever since I got it. Like because I know everybody says the fingers get all the nubs get all messed up.
Oh yeah,
But I'm so happy to have a new alternate controller, and the amber. I just something about the amber just really calls to me. The amber of the controller, the Death Stranding one.
yeah. I
I'm really
it
glad that worked for you, man.
it
Yeah, me too. Yeah, super
some
thanks to Greg out there for sending me that.
Yeah, somebody tweeted. I saw a tweet the other day that was like, "Bring back translucent controller designs or console designs." I'm like, "Yes, do that because those were cool." Like, I don't know if it's just because of the like all the ones we got in like the N64 era that have just like colored the rest of my like tastes, but I'm
Hmm.
like, yeah, I would love to have those kinds of things. I didn't care about Death Stranding enough to get that
Yeah,
one.
I was like, I'm not gonna get a
Um,
console, but Greg Miller saw my plea, and yeah, he was like, hey, we got the extra one here. So,
yeah.
but yeah, I know Death Stranding though. I mean, Death Stranding aside, I hear just in general that Kojima games can get pretty long, even in just the cutscenes and stuff. So I've been really waiting for a good chunk of free time for me to finally boot that up.
Yeah, next time you and I get together, Cameron, and just like grab lunch or something, I'm very interested to talk to you about like the end of that game in particular. Um,
I think I made in my review. I made my feelings about that ending very
I
clear.
mean, yeah, you very much touch on it of like, oh, it gets tedious and it kind of like rehashes a lot of the same moments. But I want to talk specific about some specifics that I don't want you putting in the review, and I don't want to really go into it here
Oh, that's fair.
in
Yeah,
spoiler stuff. But
and we can
just
celebrate
something
me
when
moving back to civilization.
exactly like yeah, when you're back on this side of town, we can hang out without like having to meet halfway at like half an hour away for both of us. Then like yeah, let's go and discuss Death Stranding because it's definitely a game. Like I'm glad you ended up wanting to take the reins on writing the review for it because I was like I just it's a game that like I struggled with and originally it was gonna be Logan was gonna write the review, but he just wasn't getting through it quick enough. So then I beat it and was like, okay, I'll take the review on it. And then I just was struggling with like, how do I want to rate this game? What do I want to say about it? Because like I think I've touched on in this show before, but like there are some elements of that game that I love, and then there are some that I just absolutely hate, and it just swings back and forth between those two so much over the course of the however many hours I put into it that I'm just like at sometimes this game is a 3 and sometimes it's a like 8 or 9 for me, but like I don't know
Yeah,
where ultimately it would net out. So when you decide to take it on, I was like, cool, I will just review it then, or like edit the review.
yeah. No.
Um,
I came away like no spoilers, but I came away. This is the kind of game like I've talked about. Like anybody who listened to my Game of the Year stuff last year will know that I was a big fan of Red Dead Redemption 2. But the things I loved about Red Dead Redemption 2, like really loved and did over and over again while playing through that game, was the stuff that people didn't like. Like I, out of my own free will, went around and did chores around the camp. before every time I got up out of my my tent, I got up, I went around and I finished all the chores in the camp, and then I went around about and did whatever I was going to do that day. Like I very much like lived inside of that camp. So this game with the thing is, I still have I haven't 5-starred all the preppers yet. So I kind of want to go back and do that. Like I might end up platining this game, not because I want to plata, but because I really like the day-to-day, like the moment-to-moment grind in that game appeals to me on some like deep, weird level. So I partly go into that in the review, but
yep.
Yeah, the review should be out pretty soon, if I can get it past Trevor's gatekeeping.
It's like the last.
It's good gatekeeping. It's good.
The last run of notes I gave you were pretty like there was basically one large structural one, but it was more of like, okay, like in the future, I think we'll look at some more strict kind of guidelines and stuff. But yeah, so at this point, I'm pretty much just waiting for you to get those changes back to me, and it should be good to go. So
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's good content. It's a well written review. It just needed to, like, especially in the beginning, it needed to focus on the game more.
That's true. That is 100% true.
Instead of like the acting performances and the story and stuff. But yeah, it's funny because look for that. We'll try and get that out this weekend. Yeah, so hopefully by the time you're listening to this on Monday, it's up on the site.
No, but that's it for me.
Cool.
Well, one more thing about Death Stranding is that another reason why I've been holding off, even if I had gotten the controller like earlier than I thought, I'm just so curious about this game, and I just keep hearing about how much of an auteur Kojima is, and just how wild the premise is and everything. So I've been wanting to do like a lot more reactions, and I've been able to do some of that with my DSLR and my vlog cam. But I was like, man, with Death Stranding, let's take it up a notch. So I finally invested in a webcam and a mic. And so that's also why I was holding off, because I wanted to save up for it and do some offline reactions. So I'm not going to be streaming my playthrough, but I will be using this to kind of capture like at least maybe the first hour or so of my playthrough. And so that's also why I've been holding off, because I was waiting until I kind of properly tested everything out. You know?
Cool. Yeah. Very cool. I look forward to seeing what you come up with that. In terms of other stuff that you've been playing or watching or whatever, Christian, what do you got?
I've been watching a lot of anime. That's if anyone's hearing me for the first time, like, I'm a big film buff, but even more than that, I'm a big anime buff. And so I've been watching a lot of anime because it is, a bit easier to just hit play than it is to hit play and then start playing a game, especially if I need to find, big chunks of time. And so actually I pulled up my watch history right now while y'all were talking, and I thought I'd describe some of these shows, because some anime is wild, guys. Anime is weird, but it's also great. And just kind of hear some of your thoughts. It's kind of a mini game here. But I'm watching one right now called Ascendance of a Bookworm. And what happened was, this high school girl, she died and got reincarnated in a fantasy world. Think your Game of Thrones, Dungeons and Dragons kind of thing. She got reincarnated, but into, not like from start, she reincarnated into a 10-year-old girl that she was gonna die. So when the 10-year-old girl dies, she's reincarnated into there and kind of just jumps into that slot. And the premise is that she was like a nerd and like read a lot, in her previous life in Japan, and there's no books. Like there's only this, as far as civilization goes, like there's only the nobles have access to paper and ink and printing and stuff like that, and she was born into a commoner life. And so it's kind of this struggle of like, I want to read books, I want to write. And so she's taking her knowledge from, when she studied, like making clay tablets and learning how to like cut trees and kind of like mush them up into something that can become paper. And she's getting the attention of like people that like she as she's making these experiments, she's also, just for her own convenience, like creating things that they don't have, things like shampoo and hair ornaments and things like that. And everybody's like excited about these new inventions and are kind of investing in her. And she's like, cool, I'm going to take advantage that they're investing in me. That way I can get closer to my goal of like finally getting a book, and so it's kind of silly, but it's really wholesome too. So I'm liking that so far.
Nice.
Following up with My Hero. My Hero is going in its fourth season. Are y'all caught up at all? Or I don't know if Cam watches it. I know.
Yeah, I caught up with this last episode about what was it, Sun Eater? The focus of this last week's episode? Yeah.
Which I didn't have that much high hopes for him, but dude, he turned it around.
He surprises everybody.
Yeah, he had some cool moments in that.
I'm a comic reader, so I've read like up to where it's released, like even this week. So, I'm on board. Like I'm on top of that. I haven't watched this last week's episode, but I know what it's from. I will say, however, if you thought this last week's episode with Sun Eater was baller, you are gonna really enjoy this next week's episode.
Nice. Out of curiosity, what I'm gonna do is, so for My Hero, I just watched the anime. I don't read the manga, but after season 4 is over, I'm gonna read the manga starting from then to have that experience of seeing. I want to have that experience of seeing something animated that I read first.
It's a cool feeling.
Just out of curiosity, I Promised Neverland was a very popular anime, came out earlier this year, and the cliffhanger ending for that was just like I started reading the manga, so that will technically.
It's so good.
So whenever the anime picks up for that, that's something that I'll finally get that experience too, of like, oh, I read this and now I get to kind of see, compare the adaptation. So cool. My Hero, and I'll just mention this one more anime that I'm watching. It's called Grand Blue Fantasy, and this has been hitting my RPG itch. Like how maybe Final Fantasy comes out, and so or Kingdom Hearts or any kind of game, and on YouTube you'll see just a compilation where they just tie all the cutscenes together. Mm-hmm. That's kind of like what this feels like watching. It's like a Tales game, like there's sky pirates and an evil army and this and that. It's very by the numbers RPG storytelling. But since I don't have a lot of time to game right now, I started a new job, for anyone who doesn't know, and it's longer shifts that I'm used to, and I'm getting home much later than I'm used to, and so I don't always have time to game, but I can put, episodes are only 20 minutes, and so it kind of hits familiar beats, and so I feel like I'm kind of getting that kind of RPG storytelling that I like so much, but in like a really easy kind of like weekly little bite-sized chunks. And so I'm really enjoying that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Grand Blue Fantasy is actually a mobile game.
Yeah, I'm familiar that it's a mobile game, but I don't mobile game myself.
That's fair.
And so it's a really good adaptation, I think. Like I've seen, so Tales is a popular game series, and they have adapted those in animations, but they usually just do it into like a 1-hour movie or OVA, or like they try to fit like 50 hours of stuff into like 2 hours, and like it's just like messy, but this, since it's a series, it's in its second series, so we're at least looking at 25 episodes. Like it's a lot easier to enjoy that kind of story when you have more time to spread it over several episodes. So I'm really liking it. It's not anything you haven't already seen in a Tales game or a Final Fantasy, but like I said, it does like give me that like I'm enjoying that kind of story, since I don't actually have the time to play, Dragon Quest or anything like that right now.
Very cool. Did you ever, just out of curiosity, Christian, did you ever play a game called Battle Chef Brigade?
No, but it sounds familiar. It sounds super familiar.
So yeah, it came out a couple years ago. It's out on PS4. It's on Switch. And it's like the synopsis I will give you is basically like a cooking anime crossed with like a hack and slash game crossed with like a match 3 game.
It's so good.
Like
oh my gosh, I love it.
The art style is the art style, and the story is cooking anime. Like this this like evil force is kind of infecting like creatures in the region, and those creatures, when they're killed and used for food, are now like infecting people, and so you're having to like cook the poison and the toxins out of them, and also try and figure out the source of like what's causing this.
Jeez, I wish
stuff.
I had known that was the plot. That sounds cool. Like I've heard the name thrown around and I've seen it mentioned, but I don't know why I never got into it. But hearing the plot, that sounds like something I'd really enjoy.
Yeah, and the Battle Chef Brigade is basically like cooking is like it's the way the chefs are kind of, or what the chefs are cooking is they're cooking the monsters in the region. So before they can cook the monsters, they have to go out and like slay the monsters and stuff, and that's why they're like it is like warrior chefs basically.
Okay.
And you're basically playing somebody trying to get into the battle chef brigade and like and yeah, so it's like I really enjoyed it when it came out a couple years ago, and it seems like knowing the things you like, it seems like it would be right up your alley.
Oh, yeah.
So I would definitely encourage you to check that out if you ever have the time to like hop in and play some games. And stuff.
Definitely a big goal of mine next year is definitely play more games.
Yeah, and it's one of those like I remember when it came out, I was like, I would watch the like if they made this into an anime with like, just without the gameplay and all that stuff, and just kind of like expanded and explored the stories that they're like telling in there. Like that's something I would like easily throw on and watch. So yeah, it just you talking about kind of some of the ones you're watching reminded me of that game, and thought it might be something worth checking out for you if you have the time. So
oh, for sure.
Throw it on your list. Well, I will go ahead and close us out with one more thing I've been playing a little bit. I went through and played Afterparty on the PlayStation 4. I believe it's also on Xbox Game Pass, I think, if you are interested in getting it and playing it over there. It is the follow-up to Night School Studios' Oxenfree that came out a few years ago, which was like one of my favorite games of the year that year. It's very much like a choose-your-own-adventure kind of thing. And for those that don't know this one, basically you play as a pair of characters, Milo and Lola, and basically you died. Like the two of you died. You've been best friends for years and years and years, but you're dead now in hell, and you're trying to get out of hell. And the way of doing that, much like Devil Went Down to Georgia song, where you could escape or beat the devil in a fiddle contest, but instead of that, it's a drinking contest. Like you go around on a bar crawl basically through hell. You kind of have to go and outdrink different like minions in hell to like work your way up to outdrinking Satan and stuff. And so it's a weird like choose your own adventure, very funny kind of humor to it. I don't think it quite lives up to the kind of horror mystery story that they told with Oxenfree. But
it does seem like a different tone just from afar. Like I said, like I haven't played Oxenfree at all, but even from afar, I can get a vibe for what it is, for the tone, the atmosphere, and compared to what I've seen so far of Afterparty, yeah, they seem pretty different.
Afterparty definitely is a mix of like it swings wildly into like really funny stuff and some of the drinking competitions you're having with because the little game mechanic that they have is like you can go and grab a drink in any of the bars, and you can usually pick from like 4 drinks that bar is making, and those drinks will give you like if you drink you'll get like an extra option when you're making a selection for like what you're gonna say, and that extra option changes on like based on the type of drink you have. Like you can get a drink that'll make you talk like a pirate, or you can get a drink that'll make you talk like a vaudeville comedian or something like that, and the dialogue changes based around that, and so you can have kind of like some of those comments are just like hysterically funny, and the conversations are very funny. But then at the core, a lot of what this game is exploring is like the central friendship of Milo and Lola, and how they're handling being in hell, and when one of them makes a decision, or like they'll come up with like I want to do it this way, I want to do it this way, and based on like what you choose, that's going to make one of the characters resent the other a little bit because like you chose so and so's character decision over somebody else's, and they kind of like are constantly fighting with that. Before they died, they were gonna, like they were just graduating college, they were gonna go their separate ways because of like life circumstances, and a lot of the game is them wrestling with like the unspoken frustrations of that. So yeah, it's an interesting game and dynamic, and it definitely by the end goes some places I wasn't expecting the game to go. So it was interesting. I'm going through kind of a second playthrough to play a lot of in very telltale fashion. It's you'll get to like milestone moments where you can make one choice or you make another
Okay.
choice, and that's gonna like split the game off into certain paths for like a chapter of the game. So I'm kind of
Hmm.
going back at this point and making like the other choices that I didn't make in my first playthrough to see how, A, to see how things shake out, and B, to go and get the platinum, I guess, for it. And yeah, it's interesting. I enjoyed it. I'll try and figure out once I've got this second playthrough done. Maybe I'll do a formal review of it. But it's it it doesn't quite live up to the highs that I was expecting after Oxenfree, but I enjoy it. Performances are great.
Maybe I can do the opposite. Maybe I'll jump in Afterparty and then follow up with Oxenfree.
Yeah, that'd certainly be an interesting perspective, I think. So yeah, those are kind of some early thoughts on Afterparty. And yeah, I think that'll wrap us up for this week's That Nerdy Site show. Thank you guys for joining me.
It was fun talking nerdy stuff up. Oop, I didn't realize you were still going.
No, absolutely. Go ahead. Go ahead. It's. I was just gonna. We'll go around the metaphorical table and do plugs. But yeah, it's been great having you on, Christian, because we haven't. You and I haven't talked in probably since I was in Austin. So it's always nice catching up with you, and
For sure.
and of course, always nice as you laugh. Always nice hearing your laugh. It is such a joyous little laugh. But let's go around the metaphorical table and plug anything that we want to plug. So you can follow Christian at PixelBrave. Anything out there, either on the site or elsewhere that you want to plug, Christian?
I have an experiment coming out that I don't know how much I'll be putting in. As I mentioned earlier, I got this mic and this webcam, and I wanted to try something. And my first experiment was I did a blind reaction to Brian Altano's recent release. Evangelion is a very popular anime, and it got re-released on Netflix this year, and he remixed, I think, 7 tracks from the show in his typical misanthrope kind of style, very synth inspired, heavy, and but also very kind of funky too, kind of chill. And so I shot my reaction to that, listening to that, and the one thing though is, like I said, this experiment, I'm playing around with things I'm not used to. I had the mic set up weird, and so there's definitely some reverb. So I feel like I'm gonna post it and just put out the thing like, yeah, like this is me not knowing what I'm doing. But yeah, so I'll probably post like either a clip or a sample of that later this week.
Cool. All right. You can follow Cameron at RevCabot, 2 B's, 2 T's. Anything you want to shout out, Cameron?
Yeah. Shout out to the real ones. I had an idea of what I was going to say here, but I don't remember it. So shout out to the real ones. You know who you are. Peace, love, and jet fuel can't melt steel beams. There we go. Let's end the decade with that phrase. Okay, let's do that.
Like, we haven't been doing this as like a video Discord call for the last few weeks, but if we were, you would have seen my eyes roll so many times in this episode, Cameron.
For sure. I imagine every time I imagine you responding to anything that I say, I always imagine you rolling your eyes.
That's probably a good default to go with, yeah. You can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey on Twitter. I'll go ahead and shout out. Definitely go check out the Google Stadia review I put up. I don't know if we'll have. I still have a Honey Boy like thoughts percolating that I might try and sit down and hash out this weekend, but we'll see. We shall see. And then also next week I'm gonna try and so the week that this is going live, I'm gonna get back into the flow of streaming over at twitch.tv/thatnerdysite. I need to finish my time with the Outer Worlds, and then I also after the Game Awards, which were as we're recording this last night, I picked up a few more games that I want to try and squeeze in for Game of the Year consideration. That I might just do as some streaming. So and I think there will, without spoiling it, I think there will be amusing streams that will involve me suffering. So let's have fun checking that out. You can follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site. You can check out thatnerdysite.com for the latest content, reviews, all that fun stuff. And yeah, if you liked what you heard, please rate, review, like, subscribe, and maybe even consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/thatnerdysite. Every patron gets early access to a monthly bonus episode of this very show, That Nerdy Site Show. The early access show that is out there for people right now is going back to the Thanksgiving memories of Cameron, myself, and Frank from the site. So you can check that out.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, we had a good time with that. So thank you again, guys, for joining me, and thanks to everybody listening. And stay nerdy and be good to each other.